G'day viewers, Grazer, and today I'm going to do a bit of a video on what I believe is probably the best and probably most successful lure retrievers on the market. And this is the Murray Monster lure retriever. I've been using this probably for about 10-15 years. Fantastic, easy to use, and once you've got the knack on how to use it, you'll never look back, and it will save you a heap of money. So let me give you a bit of a rundown on how I've got it set up and how to use it, and I'll show you some of the tips and tricks that I use. Now, the way these are designed is you've got the main body of the lure retriever, which is this main cylinder bit here, which is weighted. It's actually quite heavy. Then we've got this wire band which sort of comes out to the side of it, which is where we slide the line through the retriever and how we connect the retriever to your line. Then it has these chains, which are sort of located on the bottom here. Now, these are designed basically for when you glide that lure retriever down your fishing line. They're used to help hook up to any sort of your trebles or your hooks that are actually secured to the timber, and help reef those trebles off that timber when it comes to pulling that lure up. And once again, for the sake of the demonstration, to give you an idea how these chains work, I've got that lure retriever hooked up to my fishing line, and the majority of the times when you do slide that lure retriever down, it can knock that lure off the timber, but so you can see what the chains are designed for. Once you get it down, there's a good chance it's going to hook up to the treble, and once you reef that lure retriever up, it's going to disconnect your lure from the timber. And that's the main purpose of those chains. So, how do I have it set up in my boat? Well, once again, you've got the main body of the lure retriever, which has that loop, which is located there on the top of the lure retriever. I have some green nylon fishing cord, which I just happen to have in the shed. And this is ideal. It's about 110, 150 pound breaking strain. It's nice and strong. I know that's not going to come off the lure, but the great thing about this cord is you can sort of slide it down into the water and it's not going to rip your hands. It's strong, and what I use to store that line is I have about 20 to sort of 30 meters of that line, and I use this old hand line reel. It's great for once you are finished with that lure retriever, just to be able to wrap that back up on that, and once it's sort of back up, you can just whack that back underneath the deck of your boat. So let me give you a bit of a demo why I use the hand reel as for storing that line for the lure retriever. And the main reason why I use it is because the line releases off that reel nice and smoothly when I am dropping that line over the side of the boat to retrieve that lure. And you're not having to use your second hand or use another hand to unravel the line while you're dropping that line down. And to give you an example, if I'm dropping that down, you can see just how easy that line just comes off the top of that reel. Okay, the most important bit is connecting this lure retriever to your fishing line. Pretty straightforward. Chains are pointed down. We've got our loop on the top of the main lure retriever here, which our line is connected to. Make sure we've got some good tension on that lure or that line that's going down to the bottom. And what we've got to do here is have the line on our side, the lure behind the line, and we've got to bring that line in between those two main loops of that lure retriever, and it just sits nice and slides there, and then to have that line feed through those two loops, what we've got to do is grab that line from behind, bring it across, and it's got to go over those two ends of that bar. And there we have it, ready to slide up and down. As you can see, that's going through the main two loops of that bar, and down she goes. Now I'm going to show you how I go about getting the lure off the line. Is what we do, first thing I always do is once the lure is off the water, I just leave it submerged in the water. You only want to bring one up at a time, and I always bring my lure retriever up first. So I slide that up, and generally as a rule what you'll find is it might be tangled up or twisted. So the first thing you want to do is untwist it, and as you can see that's still sliding there. Now, first part, we've got to bring that line back over this bar. So what we do is we grab our finger in there, make sure it goes over the top, make sure it goes over the bottom, bring it back behind the lure retriever, and now it's just suspended behind those two circles. And what we do is we push our line back behind that top circle and back behind that bottom circle, and there we are, disconnected. So, to show you once again how we connect it, towards the main, sliding next to the main weight, and we've got to bring that line behind those bars, and there we have it, ready to drop down and knock that lure off the timber. Now, once we've got it up, that has to come in front of that main bar. So we grab our finger in, bring it over, make sure it goes over that top bit, make sure we go over the bottom bit, bring it behind the lure retriever, and she just slides out. And there we have it. So there you go, guys. That's how I hook up that beast to the fishing line when out trying to knock that lure off the timber. Hope that sort of makes sense. Going to give you a bit of a rundown and show you a quick video while out at Lake Mulwala recently, using this beast to get a lure off a bit of timber. So stay tuned. So I'm snagged up here. So I've just hooked them in coda, so I've just anchored just to the side of the line. Now it's just really important that you don't try and pull too tightly on that line, because ultimately you don't want to embed that hook onto that snag any further. So the trick to these is obviously the chain's got to go downwards, and where you've got this bar, this bend, is you point that towards you, and we guide that line closest to the main bar. Then so we've got it sort of sliding up and down, as you can see there. Then what we do is we grab that line, pull it out, and we come each side of that bar that's facing towards us, and we fling it over. And there we have that purpose sort of sliding up and down action. Now just put a bit of tension on that, without sort of, just be mindful that you don't want to be bending your rod. You can potentially snap your rod, and we just guide that down, and we sort of let that hit the lure and hopefully knock it off the snag. Just give it a few bolts. And keeping the pressure on that line, and there we go, we got it off. Now what I do, so we don't get all twisted up when we come up, is I bring the lure retriever up first, and then it can potentially get twisted up a little bit, untwist it. So the key here is we grab this line, fling it back over the bar, and then you'll see that that line is nice and close to the main bar, and we just fling that back over, and there we have it. And there's our lure, ready to have another crack. So there you go, guys. I hope the video was helpful. And if you have any questions or love to hear your thoughts on the lure retriever, or if you've got any suggestions on better ways of using it, I'd love to hear from you. Please drop me in the comments below. And let's hope this beast saves you a few bucks while you're out in the water as well.